looking at two aces that's awe and amazement, more than standing ovation. Raw results for the taking, mega rev back, do our thing, don't go with the latest. You know how it goes. They tell me quit, but I'm too lit. Make moves, no excuses. The truth is the shoe fits. These rap cats wearing rap caps, but I'm prudent. I'm seeing through the lies, I ain't foolish. I know how them Judases making moves quietly kept. I got away, but you silently slept. Man, I never forget. I got my reps up and I stepped up. We got now, we don't want the next step, cause you know what we after. Greatness only, dog. You can keep the fame, man, you know what we after. Never break who we are. You can keep the change, man, you know what we after. Greatness, intensity, solely. Watch how we tell our story, you know what we after. Nothing I do is below me. You can keep the fame and the glory, you know what we after.
So up until this point, I've shared the basics of videography. You should have learned how to use your camera, better yet your phone, to compose shots, either static or using movement, create a sequence using select shots as well as light a scene, and capture clean audio for your talking head videos and for events. Now it's time to put all of these together to make money. People usually pay for video for one of two reasons. Either they love it or they need it for their business. They either create it for themselves or actually hire a professional videographer or production company to solve this problem. So we're gonna create content for yourself and for clients. And today, I'm gonna teach you how to get started. If you don't know me, my name is Teddy. I'm an event cinematographer and I'm the founder of Capture My Culture Films. Now I've created this channel to help any beginner videographer get better at the skill of video. So if you're looking to get better at the craft or eventually make it a profession like I did, here's where I'll be a guide. Welcome to Cause and Culture. Now, before we begin, I have a quick disclaimer. I am not a personal brand content strategist for everyone, right? I just know I've worked with a couple of different clients and some of the content that I use to grow their following has worked in the past. So this is gonna be a guide just to kind of help you get an idea of how to use social media to grow a following or to get more impressions on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube. Now, last week, one of my clients invited me to attend a back to school event in the Bronx. And I figured this was a perfect opportunity to get some shots and video for this company that I've done content creation for. Now, I'll also give you a behind the scenes look at how I edited and posted the majority of the content. If at the very least you get inspired to create content for your personal brand or use content to get paid professionally to do it for someone else, either way, I know I did my job, so let's get into it. So if you're looking to build an online portfolio for your own business, here's a good framework to start with, okay? So generally when I create content for clients, I try to create at least 3 pieces of content in 3 formats I've currently used in the past that have worked are teaser reels, full recap edits, and carousels with peak moments of the event. Now the reason why I prefer these 3 assets is because I can align them on a grid on Instagram so that's aesthetically pleasing. Once people find your Instagram page, if it's aesthetically pleasing, they're more likely to follow because your content seems to be in line with what they're interested in. So here's a good way to start with that. Now with this in mind, this video is going to focus on a little bit of pre-production and a small piece of post. I'll start by planning the prior day with a few creative shots. Here are the few shots from the list that I came up with, and here's how they came out. time to turn it into an actual social media asset. We're gonna start by creating a visual recap carousel. Now here are the select shots I created from the event. I'll edit one of them so you can actually see the before and after. You can start with a LUT, then work your way from there. I prefer to start from scratch and add LUT at the very end if need be. So I'm just gonna go to the actual event. So right here is the actual event, and these are the edited shots that I created, right, from the event. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to select all of these photos and I'm gonna re-edit them so you can see the before and the after. So I'm gonna remove all of the edits. So let's start with this one right here. So the first thing I do is the exposure on the photo. So I know it's overexposed, so I want to bring that down, right? The next thing I want to do is, some people do the contrast next, right? Just to add a little more contrast in the photo, right? The highlights, I'll tweak by either tweaking left or right. So if I add highlights into the photo, I tend to bring down the whites. If I add shadows to the photos, because the shadows are, you know, bring more detail back in the shadows, I'll tend to bring down the darks. All right. Then I do a standard S curve just to get some more range in the photo. I like contrast in my photos, so that's important to me. And then the next thing is, which is rather different, is I look for the dominant colors in the actual photos, which ones are gonna stand out. So typically red is a color that I like that stands out the most. I see green and I also see yellow, right? So what I'll typically do is I'll desaturate pretty much every color in the photo, and then I'll introduce them all back to see how they change the dynamic of the photo, right? So I'm pretty much starting with a blank canvas, right? So I'll start with the red. So I'll bring back the saturation in the red, and then I slightly change the hue to see which color I like, which one is a bit more punchy, right? And then I'll check the luminance to see if I need to darken it or if I need to, you know, make it more brighter. So I kind of like that look, right, just to start off with. The next one is the orange, and orange is usually where the skin tones come in. So I don't really like to play much with the skin tones because it looks unnatural. So I'll usually just bring it back in so I could see, you know, how the skin tones look in the photo, especially if the subject is in it. If it's like landscape, or if I'm just getting, you know, details of like, you know, buildings or subjects and it's not really a person in the frame, then I'll play around with it. But for the most part, I just bring it back in so I can see how the skin tones look in the photo. Now the next one is yellow. So yellow is one of those things, those colors, it's like, it's either you like it or you don't like it, right? And it all depends on, you know, if it's dominated in the photo, right? So if I bring back the yellow, I kind of like it in the background because the actual traffic light is in the shot. So I'll slightly bring up the saturation for it, you know, because I want it to pop a little bit. And then you can change the color if you want it to be more of like a orangey yellow, or if you want it to be stand out to be more greenish. But I think I'll bring it more towards the orange. So then we have green, which is the green is here. I tend to go for more of a darker green in my photos because I like it to be a little bit more moody. But you know, you may want a brighter green, you know, all up to you, right? So have that. This is more of kind of like the aqua. So like I said, I'll bring it into frame. So if you notice, it's coming in the sign over here. So I definitely want that to be highlighted in the photo. And then we have the blue. So there's blue in the shot, but I think it's a little bit overpowering. So I'm actually gonna, desaturate the blue because I like the way these colors are working together. Then you got purple. You add the purple back in. It didn't really do much, so I can leave that out. And then this is more of a lighter purple. So this is the shot that we have here, right? So this is the original. This is it with the color. So this is the original, this is it with the color. Now, if you wanted to take it a step further, right? I could always blur out the background more and add texture in the background. So how I would add texture in the background would be, I would do a mask, and that would just isolate the subject and you would just see the background. So with that, you could actually bring the color up on it, right? You can bring it down. Essentially, I just want a little bit of separation. So I may just bring up the exposure a little bit because I want it to be separate from the subject, right? And then what I also want to do is I want to bring in some texture in the background and some clarity. And if it was a lot of haze during the day, you can add haze or bring it back down. I'm going to leave it where it's at. And then if you want to add some green in it to make it a little bit different, all right, that's fine. Okay, so that's generally what I do on my photos. So like I said, I look for the dominant colors. First thing I do is the exposure, to bring the exposure down to a tone that I like. I'll add a little more contrast in it so that the colors pop. And then I'll look for the dominant colors that are in the shot. And I'll pretty much remove all of the colors, and then I'll introduce them one at a time to find out which one stands out more. And like I said, it all depends on the shot. You may want yellow in your shot. You may not want yellow in the shot. It all depends on, what you're capturing. But, I was kind of looking for more of a moodier look, right? So if you look at this compared to how it was originally, right? So if I go to the settings, right? That's how it is originally. This is adding some more punch. So after I edit 10 to 20 shots, so either photos or stills, I save them to my OneDrive folder where I can download them directly to my phone. The first picture I usually crop to 4:5, and it's generally the last post of the 3. However, I edit the photos first so that I have an idea of which thumbnails I would like to use for the other 2 posts, which are the teaser reels and the full edit. So in this video, I shared my process for capturing behind the scenes footage to post on social media. You've seen how I plan my shot list, use the footage to make an engaging carousel post. And in the next video, I'm gonna show you how I condense a full edit to a 45-second teaser edit. Stay tuned to that one. Right? And if you're interested in learning more about the basics of video, I have a playlist that tells you everything you need to know to start this videography journey. You can check it out free at the end of this video. Until next time, keep it creative.